On May 1, 1960, the United States government made a fatal miscalculation. It did not just tell a lie, it built a massive fabricated story, broadcast it to the entire world, and even painted a fake airplane to prove it. But when the truth was finally exposed, it humiliated a president, collapsed an international peace summit, and forever cracked the trust between the American people and their own government. This is the story of the U-2 incident, a top-secret mission, a captured spy, and the lie that almost triggered World War III. In the spring of 1960, Washington's war rooms pulsed with a single question. How many Soviet warheads were pointed at American cities? No one could say for certain. The Special National Intelligence Estimate, stamped in bold red in 1958, admitted the truth. US leaders had almost no reliable data on the size or reach of the Soviet nuclear arsenal. The numbers were guesses, not guarantees. Some experts warned of 1,500 warheads. Others whispered it could be far more. The only thing everyone agreed on was that the margin for error was deadly thin. Inside the National Security Council, the debate churned. The Soviets had just paraded their newest missiles through Red Square, and each new photograph sent a ripple of panic through the Pentagon. Radio intercepts and defectors' tales were scraps, not proof. The so-called missile gap haunted every policy memo, every late-night phone call. With the Paris summit just weeks away, the pressure mounted. Eisenhower's advisors pressed for certainty, but the president faced a wall of secrecy. The Soviet interior was a blind spot, and the risk of miscalculation, of mistaking bluster for reality, could mean nuclear war. The only answer, they decided, was to see for themselves. High-altitude reconnaissance became the obsession. The U-2, a fragile, camera-laden glider that soared above commercial jets at 70,000 feet, was their chosen instrument. It was built not for speed or combat, but for vision, designed to photograph missile sites hidden in the heart of Soviet territory. Every mission pushed the limits, the edge of the atmosphere, the edge of what was possible, the edge of what was safe. The stakes were nothing less than survival. At 70,000 feet, the world thins to a whisper. The U-2 was engineered for this rare air, a spindly, camera-laden craft that floated above the reach of ordinary flight. Its wings stretched nearly as long as a city bus, but weighed less than a family sedan. Pilots called it a powered glider, designed to carry its precious film over forbidden ground and return with secrets that could tip the balance of nuclear fate. The faith in the U-2's altitude bordered on religious. Manuals claimed a ceiling of 70,000 feet, just high enough to slip above Soviet fighters and supposedly their missiles. But the margin was razor thin. At that height, the difference between controlled flight and a fatal stall was measured in single digits on the airspeed gauge. The aircraft's skin, stretched taut against the cold, could crack under the pressure of a sudden turn. Inside the cockpit, the pilot was sealed in a pressure suit, breathing bottled oxygen. The suit was not just a precaution, it was a lifeline. If the cabin lost pressure, the air outside would boil the fluids in his body, a phenomenon called ebullition. The threshold was 2.5 pounds per square inch. Drop below that, and consciousness would vanish in seconds. Pilots trained to recognize the first tingling in their fingers, the subtle hiss of a failing seal. There was no room for error, no time for rescue. Yet for years, this fragile equilibrium held. Each mission that returned safely only deepened the belief that the U-2 was invulnerable, its pilots invisible at the edge of space. The risk was real, but the illusion of safety grew stronger with every photograph smuggled back across the Iron Curtain. In the war rooms and briefing halls, the dangers became footnotes. The faith in altitude would soon be tested. Pressure built behind closed doors as April drew to a close. In the Oval Office, President Eisenhower weighed a decision that balanced on the edge of disaster. The Central Intelligence Agency proposal, codenamed Grand Slam, called for a final deep penetration U-2 flight across the Soviet heartland just days before the Paris summit. The mission order, drafted in late April and signed under presidential authority, spelled out the stakes in cold, bureaucratic language, photographic evidence of Soviet missile fields gathered at the highest risk. Allen Dulles, the CIA director, made his case with a steady hand. In a memo to the National Security Council, he argued that intelligence from this flight could settle the missile gap question once and for all. He assured the president that the U-2's 70,000-foot ceiling kept it safe from Soviet defenses, even as new reports hinted that the SA-2 guideline missile might reach higher than anyone wanted to admit. The risk was real. Dulles pressed the urgency. There would be no second chance before the summit. Eisenhower hesitated. The NSC minutes capture his doubts, his questions about the danger to the pilot, and the wisdom of gambling so much on a single flight. Yet the need for certainty about warheads and about Soviet intentions overrode caution. The authorization was signed. Orders flowed from Washington to Peshawar Air Base. The codename Grand Slam became the password for a mission no one could fully control. The summit clock was ticking. On the runway, preparations began for a flight that would push the Cold War to its breaking point. France's Gary Powers banked the U-2 east over Sverdlovsk, the world below reduced to a patchwork of forest and factory smoke. At 70,000 feet, the cockpit was a bubble of pressurized silence, every breath filtered through tubes, every nerve on edge. The instrument panel glowed with the steady hum of altitude, just as the CIA manuals promised, just as Allen Dulles had assured the president. But on this May day, Soviet radar operators were tracking the intruder with a precision that defied every American assumption. At 8:42 local time, the Rodhan radar at Minsk II locked on. 3 minutes later, SA-2 guideline missiles streaked skyward from Krasnogorsk, their white contrails slicing the thin air. 4 were launched, 1 found its mark. The explosion came without warning, a flash and a shockwave that tore through the left wing. The U-2 shuddered, then broke apart. In those seconds, Powers reached for the self-destruct switch, but the controls spun away as the cockpit tumbled. The silver dollar poison pin, hidden in his suit, stayed unused. Automatic systems triggered, the canopy blasted off, the seat ejected, and Powers was thrown into the rushing void. The sudden decompression knocked him toward blackout. He tumbled, arms flailing, until his parachute snapped open at 3,000 feet, dragging him back to consciousness as he drifted toward the ground. He landed hard in a muddy field near Kamenka, 30 kilometers southeast of Sverdlovsk. Soviet soldiers closed in, rifles raised. The pilot, who was never supposed to be seen alive in the Soviet Union, was captured within minutes. On the forest floor, the myth of American invulnerability lay shattered beside the wreckage. On May 5, 1960, official voices in Washington stepped to the microphones and delivered a story crafted for damage control. The world was told that a NASA weather research plane, on a routine high-altitude mission to study meteorological patterns, had gone missing near the border between Turkey and the Soviet Union. Behind the scenes, the CIA and NASA had worked out the details in a flurry of memos, a draft press release, a fabricated flight plan, and even a U-2 aircraft, hastily painted with NASA insignia, all designed to sell the illusion. The cover story was carefully worded, describing a lost pilot, a malfunctioning oxygen system, and a scientific mission gone awry. Unnamed spokesmen repeated the line to the press, hoping to drown out the rumors swirling from Moscow. In the corridors of power, the deception felt flimsy, one gust away from collapse. The world waited, reporters pressed for details, and the American lie hung in the air, fragile as the glider that had fallen from the sky. On May 7, 1960, the world watched as Nikita Khrushchev strode before the Supreme Soviet, holding the fate of the Paris summit in his hands. The American cover story still hung in the air. NASA, weather research, a lost pilot. But Khrushchev had not yet played his final card. He paused, then let the silence stretch. He began by saying he must tell them a secret. His voice echoed through the chamber. He said that when he made his report, he deliberately did not say that the pilot was alive and well. And now just look how many silly things the Americans have said. The Soviet leader laid out the evidence with theatrical precision. Not only had the Soviets shot down the aircraft, they had also captured France's Gary Powers alive. On display were the intact camera, reels of exposed film, and the battered remains of the U-2, each piece a nail in the coffin of American denials. Politburo notes from that week show Khrushchev's careful orchestration. He had waited, letting Washington dig itself deeper before revealing the living pilot and the hard proof. The effect was immediate and devastating. Eisenhower's administration, caught in a lie, watched the Paris summit unravel in real time. Western diplomats scrambled, their positions undercut by the Soviet display of American espionage hardware, and a pilot who was supposed to vanish without a trace. The summit collapsed. The hope of thawing the Cold War froze over, replaced by a new, bitter certainty. In the era of nuclear brinkmanship, a single miscalculation could shatter trust on both sides of the Iron Curtain. 70,000 feet above Soviet soil, a powered glider built for secrets became the trigger for nuclear fear. When deception broke, trust shattered, and the world glimpsed how a single lie could tilt the balance of power. Today, in every crisis, that shadow still falls. History never forgets a secret revealed.